Last time, we went through 5 of the biggest what-if scenarios in Middle-earth using nothing but Tolkien's own words as the guide. What if Elrond had pushed Isildur into the fire? What if they had thrown the ring into the sea? What if the eagles had just flown it to Mordor? What if Boromir had made it home, and what if Gandalf had taken the ring himself, which turned out to be the most unsettling answer in the whole video, because even when Gandalf wins, the ring still wins. If you have not seen that one, it is worth going back to, but you do not need it for this one, because today we are finishing the list, and this half has the scenario I have been building towards since the very start of part 1. What if Bilbo had killed Gollum in that cave? And also, here's one more what if for you. What if you subscribed? Worth it, I promise. Now let's talk about Galadriel. What if she had taken it? And immediately we get the companion piece, because Galadriel gets the same offer, and it is arguably a harder test. Frodo offers it to her in Lothlorien, and unlike Gandalf, she does not recoil straight away. She stands there, and for a moment she lets herself see it. And what she describes is the most frightening thing anybody says in the entire trilogy. She says she would not be a Dark Lord. She would be beautiful and terrible as the dawn, treacherous as the sea, stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair. And then she passes the test, as she puts it, and she will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. Notice what she does not say. She does not say she would become evil. She says everyone would love her. That is the horror of it. Gandalf's version of the ring is an empire built on obedience. Galadriel's is worse in a way I find deeply hard to shake. It is worship. Not a tyrant that people resist, a queen that people adore, who cannot be argued with because arguing with her feels wrong. And here is the thing about Galadriel that people forget when they think of her as the serene lady in the woods. She is one of the last of the Noldor who came over the sea from Valinor. She was there at the beginning. She has been in Middle-earth since the First Age, and she came here in the first place because she wanted a realm of her own to rule. That was her ambition, thousands of years before Frodo turned up with a temptation in his pocket. So when he offers her the ring, he is not offering her a random object. He is offering her the exact thing she left paradise to get at the end of an age where everything she built is fading anyway. That is why the scene is so tense. She refuses it, and the cost of refusing it is that she has to accept the fading. Lothlorien ends, her time is over, she sails west. She chooses to lose. And I think that is the single most underrated act of heroism in Lord of the Rings, because there is no battle in it, and nobody sees it happen except one hobbit. Here is one nobody asks, and I think it might be the most interesting question in the video. What if Frodo had just said no? Not at the council, earlier, in Bag End, when Gandalf tells him what the ring is and what has to happen. Frodo is a comfortable, middle-aged, well-off hobbit with a lovely house and a garden and absolutely no reason to walk into Mordor. What if he had said, "I'm sorry, you take it. I am not the person for this"? And the honest answer is that Gandalf could not have made him. He would not have. The entire mission of the Istari was to inspire and counsel, never to compel. The moment Gandalf forces someone, he becomes the thing he was sent to prevent. So Frodo says no, and someone else has to carry it. And who? Not Gandalf, we have covered that. Not Aragorn, he is Isildur's heir, the exact bloodline the ring already succeeded in corrupting once, and Aragorn spends the entire story terrified of that inheritance. Not Boromir, obviously. Merry and Pippin are wonderful and are not carrying that thing to Mordor. It comes down to Sam, or a stranger. And here's what I actually think, and this is where the video gets a bit uncomfortable. I think the quest fails, and I do not think it's close, because the thing that got Frodo to Mount Doom was not strength or skill. It was that he had already decided in a hobbit hole in the Shire that he would rather carry something unbearable than let it fall on someone else. That decision is made before the journey starts. Everything after it is just endurance. A person who refused at Bag End and got talked into it later is carrying the ring for a different reason, and the ring is extremely good at finding the gap between why you say you're doing something and why you are actually doing it, which reframes the whole story for me.
The moment the war was won was not at the crack of doom. It was a hobbit in his own living room saying, "I will take it, though I do not know the way."
All right, here is the one I promised you. What if Bilbo had killed Gollum? This is the big one. Bilbo, under the misty mountains, invisible, sword drawn, standing over Gollum who has no idea he is there. Gollum is between him and the exit, and Gollum has just tried to eat him, so nobody in the world would blame him. And Frodo says it out loud in the book, decades later. What a pity Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had the chance. And Gandalf's answer to that line is the most important thing anybody says in Lord of the Rings. Pity? It was pity that stayed his hand. Do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. My heart tells me Gollum has some part to play yet, and the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many. So what happens if he does it? Sauron wins, and not maybe, not probably. Sauron wins, and it is not close. And here is the chain, and it is airtight. Frodo gets to the crack of doom. He always gets there. Sam gets him there. And at the edge, he fails. He puts the ring on and claims it for himself, because Tolkien said plainly that no mortal being could have destroyed the ring standing in that place. Not Frodo, not Aragorn, not anyone. The strength required does not exist. So Frodo stands there with the ring on his finger. Sauron's attention snaps to him instantly, and the Nazgul are already flying. Without Gollum, there is nobody to bite off that finger, nobody to dance on the edge and fall, and the ring goes home, and Middle-earth ends. All of it, the entire war, every death, every act of courage from Helm's Deep to the Pelennor, all of it comes down to whether one hobbit 60 years earlier, in the dark, could bring himself to stab a pitiful creature who had done nothing to him yet. He could not, and he had no idea what he had just done. That is what Gandalf means by even the very wise cannot see all ends. And I'll be honest with you, this is my favorite thing in all of Tolkien, because it is not a message about power or heroism or destiny. It's a much smaller and much harder one. It says you do not get to know what your mercy is for. You will never find out. You just have to do it anyway and trust that it goes somewhere.
Now, here is one that most people have never even heard of. What if Sam had not woken Gollum? And this one is the saddest thing in this entire video, and most people have never even heard of it. On the stairs of Cirith Ungol, late at night, Frodo is asleep and Gollum goes off alone. And he comes back, and Tolkien describes him reaching out and touching Frodo's knee. And for a moment, one moment, the description changes completely. He is described as an old, weary hobbit, not a creature, a hobbit, shrunken by years that have carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and beyond kin, and beyond the fields and streams of youth. Gollum is, in that instant, actually repenting, truly repenting, after 500 years. And Sam wakes up. And Sam sees Gollum with his hands on Frodo and does what any loyal friend would do. He snaps at him, calls him a sneak, accuses him of pawing at his master, and the moment closes. Gollum goes cold, and the description says a green glint comes back into his eyes, and he says nothing, nothing, nice master. And from that second on, he is leading them to Shelob. Tolkien wrote about this specific passage in a letter, and he called it, his words, the most tragic moment in the tale. Because Sam failed to notice the complete change in Gollum's tone and aspect, and Gollum's repentance was blighted, and all of Frodo's pity was in a sense wasted. And then Tolkien goes further and speculates about what might have happened if Gollum had been redeemed. He suggests that a Gollum torn between his love for Frodo and his hunger for the ring might have voluntarily cast himself into the fire, willingly, as a final act of service to the person who treated him like a person. Sit with that for a second. There is a version of this story where the ring is destroyed not by an accident, not by a struggle, but by Smeagol choosing at the end to save the person who treated him like a person. And it does not happen because a gardener who was completely right about Gollum in every other respect woke up at the wrong moment and said the wrong thing. Sam is not the villain here. That is what makes it unbearable. He was protecting his friend. He was correct about the danger, and his loyalty is precisely what closed the only door Gollum ever had.
And we finish with the darkest one, because everything in this video has been leading here. What if Sauron had recovered the ring? Not won a battle, not taken Minas Tirith, actually put it back on his finger. And the answer is worse than most people imagine, because people picture a conquered Middle-earth, burning cities, slave armies, the free peoples wiped out. That is the surface of it. What actually happens is more total than that. With the ring, Sauron is not merely the strongest force in the world. He is restored to what he was before Numenor drowned, and beyond it. The 3 elven rings are immediately exposed. Vilya, Nenya, and Narya were made by Celebrimbor alone and never touched by Sauron, but they are still bound to the one, and the moment he wears it, he sees everything they have done and everyone who wears them. Rivendell falls, Lothlorien falls, not besieged, simply revealed and unmade, and Gandalf is exposed with them because he carries Narya. Then Gondor, which is already outnumbered and only survived because Sauron was distracted. Then Rohan, then the North, then everything. But the part that makes it truly bleak is what comes after the conquest, and this is the bit Tolkien understood better than anyone. Sauron does not want to destroy the world. He never did. He wants to order it. So what you get is not an apocalypse, you get an eternity. A single, unopposable will, immortal, with no rival left anywhere, arranging every living thing in Middle-earth according to a plan that never changes and never ends, for as long as the world lasts. No war, because there is nobody left to fight. No history, because nothing new is permitted to happen. Just order forever. And the free peoples do not get wiped out, they get absorbed. That is what was actually at stake on that mountain. Not a battle, not a kingdom, the possibility that anything could ever be different again. And it came down to a creature nobody pitied, tripping.
So there they are, 10 questions, and I hope at least a couple of the answers annoyed you because that means you were thinking about them properly. And I want to say one thing about why these questions matter rather than just being fun. When you line them all up, they say something consistent. Almost every clever shortcut fails. The sea fails, the eagles fail, taking the ring fails, even when a good person takes it, even when they win. Every plan built on power collapses without exception, and the 2 things that actually work, the only 2, are a hobbit deciding to carry something he did not want, and another hobbit deciding not to kill something he had every right to kill. That is it. That is the whole engine of the story. Tolkien spent decades building the most detailed world in fiction, filled it with kings and wizards and armies and rings of power, and then made the entire thing hinge on a small act of mercy in the dark that nobody witnessed and nobody thanked anyone for. So, which one got you? Which answer do you disagree with? Because I would put money on at least one of these ending up in the comments as an argument, and honestly, the last few videos have had some of the best lore discussions I have seen anywhere. As always, I'm always listening for new lore details in the comments. Some of you actually surprise me with things I've never heard of before. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.